Think of the exact second you clicked on this video. You believe it was a conscious, independent choice born from your own curiosity. But what if that choice was actually set in stone 14 billion years ago, during the violent birth of the universe? What if every breath you take, every heartbreak you endure, and even the very breakfast you ate this morning are just dominoes falling in a mechanical sequence you cannot stop? You feel like the author of your own biography. But the laws of physics suggest a much darker alternative. You are not the author at all. You are simply a character on a projection screen, reading lines that were written at the dawn of time, completely devoid of free will. Let us tear down the illusion of choice. Section 1. The prison of the pool table, determinism. Look at your daily routine. You wake up, check your phone, feel sudden urge for coffee, and experience frustration when you get stuck in traffic. To your conscious mind, these feel like spontaneous reactions to an unpredictable world. You believe you navigate an open arena where every crossroad offers infinite futures. If you chose tea instead of coffee, the universe would simply adapt. This intuitive feeling of autonomy forms the absolute bedrock of human civilization. It is the foundation of our legal systems, the justification for moral accountability, and the engine of personal pride. If you achieve greatness, you deserve praise. If you commit a crime, you deserve punishment. But this entire structure shatters the moment you zoom in on reality. This brings us to the scientific concept of classical determinism. This framework dictates that the universe is governed by immutable, unyielding physical laws. In this view, everything that occurs in the present moment is the absolute, inescapable consequence of prior causes. Cause leads to effect, which then becomes the cause for the next effect. There are no gaps in this chain, no exceptions, no miracles. To understand the terrifying weight of this concept, we must look at the historical thought experiment known as Laplace's demon, proposed by the French mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace in 1814. Laplace argued that if a hypothetical supreme intellect, a supercomputer of cosmic proportions, could know the exact position and momentum of every single atom in the universe at one specific moment, it could use the laws of Newtonian mechanics to calculate the entire history and the entire future of reality with absolute, flawless certainty. For this intellect, nothing would be uncertain. The future, just like the past, would be completely visible. The long-term psychological consequence of accepting this worldview is profound. If determinism is absolute, you do not possess a mind that makes choices. You possess a biological engine that processes inputs and generates predetermined outputs. You are fundamentally a highly complex arrangement of physical particles following blind paths. When you stare at a menu and agonize over two different options, the outcome is already decided by the state of your neurochemistry. The agony of choice is an illusion. You are traveling on cosmic rails, strapped into a seat, watching a movie play out while falsely believing you are driving the car. Section 2. The quantum gamble, the fallacy of randomness. When confronted with the suffocating cage of determinism, many modern thinkers turn to the frontiers of subatomic physics for a sense of relief. They observe the bizarre, chaotic nature of daily life where sudden accidents alter human destinies, and they assume the universe must be inherently open. They point to the fact that humans do not feel like predictable machines. We feel erratic, creative, and spontaneous. Surely, the rigid mechanics of the 19th century cannot capture the true essence of human consciousness. This instinct found its scientific validation in the historical development of quantum mechanics during the early 20th century, spearheaded by physicists like Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr. Quantum theory completely revolutionized our understanding of the subatomic realm by introducing the concept of intrinsic probability. Unlike the predictable pool table of classical physics, a quantum particle does not occupy a single deterministic trajectory. Instead, it exists in a cloud of possibilities described by a wave function. When an electron passes through a barrier, it does not have a defined destination. It selects its path randomly at the moment of measurement. The universe, at its most fundamental level, appears to gamble. However, the long-term consequence of relying on quantum physics to save free will is a catastrophic intellectual trap. The no free will camp correctly points out that randomness is not the same thing as freedom. Imagine a historical example. A leader deciding whether to declare war based on the flip of a coin. If the coin lands on heads, millions perish. If it lands on tails, peace prevails. Is that leader exhibiting free will? No, they are simply a slave to a random event. If the neurons in your brain rely on quantum fluctuations to trigger electrical impulses, your decisions are not born from your character, your values, or your desires. They are born from subatomic dice rolls. If an electron randomly shifts to the left, it triggers a cascade of neural activity that makes you buy a book. If it shifts to the right, it makes you close the laptop. You did not choose either path. A lawless, unguided quantum event chose for you. Replacing a mechanical prison with a chaotic casino does not give you autonomy. It simply turns you from a clockwork doll into a victim of cosmic noise. Section 3. The wetness of water, the phenomenon of emergence. To escape this deadlock between rigid mechanical destiny and chaotic subatomic randomness, we must look at a fascinating real-world paradox. Consider a single molecule of water, composed of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. If you isolate this molecule and analyze it with the most advanced instruments in existence, you will find many properties: mass, electrical charge, and molecular bonds. But you will never find wetness. A single molecule of water is not wet. It cannot flow, it cannot ripple, and it cannot quench your thirst. Yet, when you bring billions of these dry molecules together, a dramatic transformation occurs. Suddenly, you have a liquid that can ruin your clothes, carve out canyons, and sustain life. This brings us to the profound psychological and scientific concept of emergence. Emergence is the process whereby larger entities, patterns, and regularities arise through the interactions of smaller, simpler entities that do not exhibit those properties themselves. The universe is not a flat plane of particles. It is organized into a magnificent hierarchy of distinct layers. Atoms combine to form molecules. Molecules organize into cells. Cells construct tissues. Tissues build organs. Organs form a sentient human being, and human beings cluster to create vast societies. To understand the historical validation of this concept, we can examine the transition of biology away from radical reductionism. For decades, scientists believed that if they could map every single base pair of human DNA, they would unlock the complete mystery of human behavior. However, projects like the Human Genome Project revealed a shocking truth. Having the parts list does not explain how the living organism functions in real time. The laws of genetics emerge from chemistry, but they cannot be fully reduced to individual chemical equations. You cannot predict the architectural complexity of an ant colony by analyzing the biology of a single isolated ant. The systemic consequence of emergence completely alters the debate surrounding free will. The radical reductionist view, the idea that only the smallest particles are real and everything else is a shadow, is a fundamental category error. It is equivalent to studying the individual brushstrokes of a masterpiece painting while completely missing the image depicted on the canvas. The layers of reality are largely autonomous. To understand the political movements of a nation, you do not use the mathematics of quantum mechanics. To cure a disease in an organ, you do not look at the behavior of distant quarks. Each layer possesses its own valid, objective laws of causality. Section 4. The tectonic shift of the mind, the birth of you. Consider the profound phenomenon of human consciousness. No single neuron in your brain possesses a personality. An isolated neuron is merely a biological wire that transmits electrical currents and exchanges sodium and potassium ions across its membrane. It does not have memories. It does not feel fear. It does not contemplate its own mortality. It is completely blind to the concept of meaning. Yet, when you link 80 billion of these blind neurons together through trillions of synaptic connections, a stunning architecture emerges. This is where the concept of the self takes form. Out of the silent, dark mechanics of cellular biology, a vivid inner world bursts into existence. Your consciousness, your deepest traumas, your grandest ambitions, and your sudden insights are all emergent properties of this hyper-complex neural network. This is the exact point where the argument for free will becomes incredibly powerful. You do not exist at the level of quarks or electrons. You exist at the emergent level of the integrated brain. At this specific layer of reality, your thoughts, intentions, and internal deliberations are not just passive side effects of physical laws. They are active physical causes in their own right. When you consciously decide to change your life, learn a new skill, or protect someone you love, that mental state triggers a physical cascade of neurochemical changes that alters the structure of your brain. The historical legacy of this view can be traced through the evolution of cognitive psychology and neuroplasticity. For a long time, science viewed the adult brain as a rigid, unchangeable machine. But we now know that conscious focus and cognitive behavioral interventions can literally rewire neural pathways. This means that you are not just a passive passenger witnessing how the universe inside you unfolds on rails. Because you are an emergent entity, you are an active participant in the cosmic chain of cause and effect. Your decisions are shaped by who you are, but who you are is continuously being rewritten by your decisions. You are both the marble and the sculptor. Section 5. The pragmatic truth, the sovereign individual. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and genuinely believing that free will is a total fiction. Imagine convincing yourself that every action you take is completely out of your hands and that you are merely a biological machine waiting for inputs. If you face a difficult choice, you simply sit still, waiting for the deterministic laws of physics to move your limbs. If you fail, you blame the Big Bang. If you hurt someone, you claim it was preordained by cosmic trajectories. This psychological experiment has actually been conducted in controlled settings. In a famous psychological study by researchers Kathleen Vohs and Jonathan Schooler, participants were divided into 2 groups. One group was exposed to texts arguing that free will is an illusion, while the other group read neutral texts. Afterward, both groups were given a mathematics test where they could easily cheat without getting caught. The results were undeniable. The participants who were primed to disbelieve in free will cheated at a significantly higher rate. When people believe they have no control over their actions, their moral responsibility evaporates. They give in to their basest impulses, suffer from learned helplessness, and experience a dramatic decline in life satisfaction. The long-term systemic consequence of denying free will is the total collapse of individual sovereignty and social order. A society that abandons the belief in personal agency quickly devolves into tyranny or chaos, because without accountability, justice becomes meaningless. Therefore, even if a non-existent supercomputer could theoretically calculate your future actions from the dawn of time, that calculation occurs at a layer of reality that is completely irrelevant to your lived experience. On a purely subjective, pragmatic basis, the sensation of making a choice is real. The effort you exert to overcome an addiction is real. The discipline you maintain to build a career is real. The love you choose to give to another human being is a genuine act of will, a free will that feels completely free, that allows you to take responsibility for your destiny, and that demands you stand tall in the face of suffering is more than enough for human purposes. The universe may be constructed from blind particles, but it has organized those particles into an entity that can look back at the cosmos, understand its laws, and consciously decide what to do next. Ultimately, the debate over free will is not a puzzle to be solved by physics, but a challenge to be lived by you. If you treat yourself like an NPC, you will live a life scripted by your circumstances, your past traumas, and the cold algorithms of the digital world. But if you step into the emergent power of your own mind, you become a genuine force of nature. Stop letting external forces dictate your focus. Take control of what occupies your thoughts, because at this very moment, your choices are actively carving out your future. Are you a conscious creator, or just a machine running on autopilot? Tell me in the comments below what choice you are going to make today to prove your own freedom. Hit subscribe to reclaim your mind and click on the next video to keep building your sovereignty. The script is blank. It is time to write your own lines.